Hey, today we're making my blackened trout with an Alabama white sauce, and that's gonna go with a Trinity pilaf, which is a New Orleans style rice pilaf, as well as a kale salad. What an Alabama white sauce is actually a barbecue sauce, but does not require any cooking, and it's a mayonnaise-based sauce. I serve it with the same kind of tone, which is like a Southern New Orleans style. So I serve it with a rice pilaf, which is vegetarian, and uses Trinity, which is green pepper, onion, and celery. I love this dish because the spices can be really heavy on the fish, but then there's these hints of horseradish and lemon in the white sauce that just perks it up and makes it so delicious. When I make this dish, I make all my spices from scratch. So I'll take, instead of buying like a pre-mixed bottle of spice, I have all my spices I can use for everything else. And I just will show you how I use like different ratios on a plate to see how much spice you're using. And it makes things really easy, and it's actually really colorful to use. I love it. I'll also quick pickle some onions today, and then turn that into a really cool vinaigrette to serve over some kale salad. So let's get started. So step one is a wet towel. This is to make sure that your cutting board isn't slipping around. If I don't have the towel, it's gonna be all over the place, which could be really dangerous, especially when you're trying to hold a knife and cut things. We'll start off making my sauce. So all I need is a bowl. And just follow along with me. I'll post the recipe in this thread as well, so that you can make it at home. But focus more on measuring with your eyeballs, and what also helps is if you kind of keep the ingredients to one side while you're adding it. So I can see this is about a cup of mayonnaise right here. And you'll get better at eyeballing this if you've never done this before. So I have horseradish. This is a horseradish heavy sauce, so I'm going to add a good deal of horseradish in here. And I might end up adding more as I taste it later on. I don't want it too sweet, but a nice bit of sweetness does help with the sauce. Next, we're gonna add some lemon. We'll start with just a half a lemon, and then if we taste it and it needs more, we'll add it in. And then a splash of apple cider vinegar. If you don't have apple cider vinegar, you can use white vinegar. Just don't use anything heavy like balsamic. Some salt and pepper. And my last ingredient is some ground red pepper, which will give it a little kick. So don't go too heavy on this because this stuff's pretty strong. So give it a stir. Almost forgot the mustard. So we're gonna add about a teaspoon of this because you don't want to add too much mustard. And that was some nice spicy brown mustard. It's perfect. You'll taste a nice tang from the horseradish, a little bit of lemon, and overall it'll just be nice and creamy. I'm going to put it in this bottle because it really helps. Number one, it looks great when you're plating to have this nice clean drizzle, but at the same time, it's just easier to just set aside, put it in the fridge, and store it. And this is a wide mouth bottle, so you can see I can just pour it right in, and I'm not really spilling anywhere. So next I'll just put this aside and we'll move on to cutting the vegetables for the pilaf. So I'm going to use half a green pepper, 2 stalks of celery, a whole onion, and then I'm also going to add into the pot some bay leaves and finish it at the end with some green onion and lemon. So I'm just going to give these all a quick chop, and you can follow along in double speed. I've cut up all the vegetables for the pilaf. I'm going to make a spice mix, and it's going to be really similar to the ingredients I'm using in the blackened trout, and so it'll give the rice just like a little bit more spice. I'm going to use garlic powder, paprika, onion, and parsley. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first cook off the veggies on high heat, and then I'm going to toast the rice in with the veggies, and then I'll add in this mixture right before I add in some liquid to cook the rice in. I'm not using veggie stock this time, but using vegetable stock would be a great way to add more flavor to your pilaf. So I haven't put oil in the pan yet. I just want to hear my vegetables sizzle, so I know the pan's really nice and hot. Adding in my oil. So rice takes about 20 minutes to cook, so I'm going to start this, and then whatever's left I can do in that last 20 minutes, so everything will come out at the same time. While I'm standing here waiting for my rice to cook, I'm going to start pickling some onions. So I'm just adding some water. This is rice wine vinegar. You can use white vinegar or apple cider vinegar, whatever flavor you want to give to your onions. I usually use equal parts sugar, water, and vinegar, as well as a pinch of salt. I'll get this going in the back, and what I want is just for the sugar to dissolve and for the solution to actually boil. Then I'm going to throw some red onions into the mix. So my onions are about this thin. If you ever are having trouble with keeping the consistency with onions, you can also use a mandolin, and that will give you, once you set it, it will give you the even slice every time. So I'm cooking these on high. You can see all the nice color and caramelization that's going on in here. That's going to give the flavor to the pilaf. If you undercook your vegetables, you'll have a pretty flavorless pilaf. I'm going to add in my rice that I've washed. Also in the back here, I'm going to give my sugar a stir to help it dissolve. And put it back on and let it boil the rest of the way. In goes my spices. And I'm going to salt along the way. So I'll add some salt now, and then I'll add a little bit of salt as needed before I serve it. Be careful not to overcook your spices. You'll get a really charred, burnt flavor, and it's just not good. So really spices only need about 20 seconds to toast. So this has almost come to a boil. I'm going to reduce it to medium low. so that it won't cook too fast and evaporate the water. My solution's boiling over here for my pickles. So I'm going to add in onions and just set it aside. So next up, we're making the spice mix for our blackened trout. You can also put this spice mix on chicken or other kinds of fish. I would recommend a white fish over something like salmon, or a red fish would work great with this as well. So our main two ingredients, the most that we're going to use is the onion powder and garlic powder, and then paprika. Then we'll add in our herbs, a little bit of parsley, oregano. Now here's where you can add your spice in. Some people, and this is great, this is a great reason why you can make your own spice mix, because you can control how spicy it is. So this stuff is pretty pungent, and we do have a little kick from the Alabama white sauce, so I'm just gonna go easy on this as well. So here we have our spice plate. I'm gonna add some black pepper. And then I'm just going to mix it up with my hands. Another trick is if you have an empty spice bottle, you can empty this into the spice bottle so that you can sprinkle your trout with it and then have it left over for the next time you make this dish. But since I'm putting raw trout right into this dish with all the spices, I can't reuse it. Okay, going to salt my trout. And then just place it right in the spices. I just want it on the flesh side and not the skin side. And I'll set this aside and we'll work on our kale. So let's talk about kale. I don't like bagged kale. It's a lot of work. And the reason for that is you get these big thick stems that you have to go in and just peel off, because no one wants to eat this. If you're cooking it, it might be okay, but we're eating it raw today, and so we don't want anything that's gonna be too tough to chew. If possible, buy a bunch of kale, and then it's way easier to just strip the kale leaves from the stem. So I'm gonna clean this kale and then make what I call a pickled onion vinaigrette and mix the salad together and set it aside for when we're ready to plate. So I have my pickled onion solution, and it's so sweet. It might need a little bit more tang, so I'm probably gonna add in some lemon as well. And then to make a vinaigrette, they used to make it where it was 1 part vinegar and 3 parts oil, and that was so oily. Now we're more, in the restaurants you'll find it's more of a half to half ratio. So here we go, just stirring while I'm adding the oil. Give it some salt and pepper. Some lemon. And give it a good taste again, just because you want to make any tweaks now before you pour it into your salad. So I know from tasting this, the kale's gonna need a little bit more seasoning. So normally you would never dress a salad until you're ready to serve it, but kale is so hearty that this acid in the vinaigrette is going to help soften it up a little bit, so it'll be nice nice and ready when we're ready to eat. And then I'll pop this in the fridge to marinate before serving. So our timing is coming along perfectly. Rice is done, it's just sitting on the stove. And I'm going to add in my fish. Things like fish, chicken, meats that you're not slow roasting, you want to save that for the absolute last thing that you do. I'm going to put my spice side down first. And we're cooking this fish entirely on the stovetop. We're not popping it in the oven because it's such a thin piece of fish. It's starting to smell really good. So if you think you want to flip it, don't just flip it right away. Give it a check and see how toasted your spices are. We're really nice and dark here. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip this. I'm supposed to be using my fish spatula when this happens. Flipping fish, it helps if you have an additional tool like a fish spatula. That way you can get right under it and take that crust along with you. Never flip just by itself. You'll splatter the oil onto your hands. So use a combination of your tongs and your spatula when flipping. Here's that pilaf. In go the green onions. Sometimes I forget to take the bay leaves out. I just say, hey, you're the lucky winner. It's good luck if you find the bay leaf in your food. It's almost there. It just needs some more salt and then that lemon. The trout's good to go. What I was doing was just seeing what the skin looked like on the bottom. As you can see, it's just nice and toasty and crisp, but not burnt. Time to plate. A trick to plating is always leave your plate on a flat surface. Don't bring your plate to the food. This just gives you a stable surface to put the rice just where you want it. Thanks again for watching and hopefully learning a new thing or two. So with these flavors in the dish, you will have noticed the blackness of the trout, which is like this dark, deep spice. Not necessarily spicy, but just a very toasty spice flavor. And so that's why you need that nice barbecue sauce to lighten it up with the lemon and the horseradish and a little hint of sweetness that you don't get from the rub. The kale salad is going to give you a nice punch and a little bit of a crunch to even out the whole dish. So we just worked with combining flavors. All these ingredients take something and add it to the other and make this dish that becomes really cohesive and balanced and full of flavor. Thank you again for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please follow me. I'll be making some more. And if you have any questions today on the process or even any general cooking questions, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to reply.